The Bay Area Science Festival has been amazing, Kathy, isn't it? Really cool. Have you all been to different events there? I have been blown away by some of the offerings. Yeah. We used to do it live in San Francisco in the big um, stadium downtown, and that is also really fun. But this is great that I could just pop in, for half an hour here and a half an hour there. That's really nice. Yay. Great. Yeah. Great.
Well, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Renee Kerrigan. I'm a member of the Big Astronomy Leadership Team. I'm actually not from the Bay Area, so I know you all are all here as part of the Bay Area Science Festival. I'm from the Midwest, from Peoria, Illinois, so I'm happy to be with you here virtually tonight. Um, but I am going to introduce the members of our team that are here tonight. Ryan Wyatt is the Senior Director of the Morrison Planetarium at the California Academy of Sciences and the producer and director of the Big Astronomy film that hopefully you just enjoyed in 360 degrees on YouTube. And Vivian White is the director for free choice learning at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific and has created some fantastic educational activities associated with the learning goals of the project and the planetarium film that you saw. So tonight, what we'd like to do is talk a little bit about how the Big Astronomy film was made and why it was made. The sort of the goal of this National Science Foundation funded project. Vivian will speak a little bit about some of the activities that go along with this program. But then the whole point of the Big Astronomy film, which hopefully you just enjoyed, is to help our viewers understand that it is not the big machines that make big science and big discoveries happen. It's not these big observatories, even though they are important and amazing. They wouldn't be there without the people. It's the people that make the science happen. And it takes diverse teams from all over the world to create these science facilities and to enable the discoveries. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about how Vivian and Ryan, science communicators, how they got involved in science because they're also STEM professionals in careers that people might not always associate with astronomy, but are important to astronomy. So let's go ahead and turn it over to Ryan to speak a little bit about how the Big Astronomy film was created.
Great. Thanks so much, Renee. And it's great to be joining everyone here at the Bay Area Science Festival, one of my favorite events every year, and to be able to share this with a virtual audience and a virtual Morrison Planetarium is still wonderful, even though we're not joining together in person. I'm actually just going to share a couple slides here to talk about how we created the Big Astronomy show. As Renee said, this is a show that's about people. And so the subtitle of the show is People, Places, Discoveries. And we wanted to highlight all three of those things as we talked about astronomy in Chile. Actually, right behind me, you can see a virtual Chilean landscape. This is actually the kind of cone-shaped peak behind me is Lincompobar, which is a volcano in the Atacama Desert and a focal point of the region where a portion of the film was shot. And what was exciting for our team was not only to be able to go down to Chile to explore these amazing places and meet these fantastic people, but then weave this into a story that we hope conveys how just fantastic not only the Chile is as a place, but the people are who make big astronomy happen. So one of the choices we made very early on was to do this like, as far as I know, no other planetarium show has been made. We wanted the people's stories, it's the stories of the people who work at these observatories, to be the core, the backbone of the show. So we started by interviewing them. So in this image, you can see Molly Michelson, who works at the Academy. She's kind of in the foreground with her back to us and sort of backlit by the video light that's used to to illuminate our subject, who's David Barrera, who you saw in the film, is someone who is active in the indigenous community in San Pedro de Atacama. And we wanted to interview David along with numerous scientists and engineers and machinists. We actually interviewed about 29 people in total in both English and Spanish for the most part. A few people were only English, a few people were only Spanish, but those interviews became the backbone of the show that you just saw if you were able to watch the streaming version. Then we have Nick Perez, who's over there on the left-hand side, shooting the video. We don't see any of that video in the show. Instead, you just hear the audio, but it's the authentic voices of the people who work at these observatories, of the people who live in this region. And well, that was critical for us to take those stories and then weave them into this larger narrative about the places and about the discoveries that are being made in Chile. So when we went to Chile, we wanted to capture these people in the amazing environments of the observatories in the Chilean desert. So this is kind of a schematic image of the way that we wanted to think about how to take our camera, because we used a physical camera, went out with a fisheye lens to capture these environments, these people. And in the planetarium dome or in a 360 experience, it's really helpful to keep the camera moving so you have this sense of immersion in the space. And so we played around with all these different ways to get very slow, steady motion, because the other problem is if you move quickly, it can be nauseating. If you move jerkily, it can be even more disorienting. So we wanted to have smooth, languorous motions. And so these are some of the techniques that we used. We've actually done a couple webinars talking about how this works, so I won't go into great detail, but we'll try to share some of those links in the chat so that you can learn more about the technical specifications of the way we captured video. But this was new to us. We are typically scientists and artists who work in digital media and create computer-generated content. So this was a great way to sort of spread our wings and do something a little bit different. One of the most exciting things that we did was, and here you can see in the foreground with a check shirt, Mike Schmidt, who is one of the leaders in the production team, carrying a camera. It's a Sony camera that's used for film work. It's actually being used, or was used, to shoot Avatar 2. And it was actually because James Cameron requested this that they split off the lens head, and I think you can see my arrow here, from the bulk of the electronics. And so what we were able to do is mount this rather heavy lens with the camera element on what's called a Ronin. It's kind of like a steady cam. This is Lucas, who is our cameraman, who carried this through the desert. And so if you recall that image of David Barrera walking through the desert, that was Lucas following him with the camera, Mike following Lucas with the heavier electronics, Matt back here following Mike with some fine-tuning controls to be able to make sure that this lens remained pointed where we wanted it to. And then actually, I'm not in the image, but I was actually behind all three of them with the sound recording equipment. So this is an exciting opportunity to explore new technologies for us, and we hope that we'll be able to use this in future productions. But for us, it was important to capture these amazing places and these amazing environments and people inside them. But then we also wanted to complement it with something that we've done quite a bit of, which is astronomical visualization. This is a visualization of the star-forming disk around the star PDS 70, one of those beautiful, eloquent names that astronomers give to amazing places in the universe. This is a place where we actually see planets forming. In fact, we think we're seeing moons forming around giant planets in this system. This is a computer simulation, but it's the reality checked with the observations that are made by ALMA and other telescopes in Chile. So all of these elements, the interviews, the video captured in the locations, and the computer-generated images combine to form the big astronomy show that you may have just seen. And as you know quite well, if you just saw the show, we would love to show you it in our planetarium, but instead we've been showing it in a virtual planetarium wrapped in 360 so that you can watch it on YouTube or on other streaming platforms. So that's a great way to share it with a large number of people. We hope you were able to see it tonight. If you weren't, or if you want to share it with some of your friends, you can look for it at the California Academy of Sciences YouTube channel. every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning Pacific time. We've been streaming these, and then they kind of disappear in order to kind of replicate that sense of going to a planetarium show and seeing the experience. Eventually, it'll be available for streaming any old time, but for right now, you've got to capture it at one of these special times. So keep an eye on the Big Astronomy website, or tune into the California Academy of Sciences or Big Astronomy YouTube channel at 11:30 a.m. Pacific on Wednesdays. Finally, I just want to note that the narrator for this show is Barbara Rojas Ayala, and she is an astronomer working in Chile. And it was really important for us to tell the story from the perspective of someone who lives and works in Chile. And so Barbara is an amazing person who does fantastic research. In fact, one of the instruments that you see in the show, kind of a Easter egg, is what graduate work on at Cornell University. But she's fluent in both English and Spanish, and she was able to record the script in both English and Spanish. And so, although you saw the show in English this evening, there is a Spanish version available as well. And so we're hoping that we'll get a nice wide international audience for this show in both English and Spanish. And in fact, it's now been translated into German because you can actually, if you're in Berlin and your German is pretty good, you can go see the show in a planetarium because Berlin Planetarium is currently open running the show. But in English and Spanish, with sort of native languages of the show, it's a great opportunity to hear, again, directly from the people who are working at these fantastic observatories in Chile. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to our regular video, and I think we're going to have a chance for a conversation and also hear about some of the other cool activities that Vivian's been working on.
Yes, Vivian, can you tell us a little bit about what Astronomical Society of the Pacific contributed to the project?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. We are part of a big team. So the planetarium show is the main driver of this, but it's a National Science Foundation funded research project, and we're looking at how we can supplement planetarium shows with other community events, and that includes working. The Astronomical Society of the Pacific administers the Night Sky Network for NASA, and that is a group of 400 astronomy clubs across the country who work in their communities and do amazing outreach. And we work with them and test out and provide different activities for them to use in their outreach events. So we created some activities for amateur astronomers and for museums for this show, and I'm going to put the link in there in a little bit. I'm going to share screen for 1 second and just show you some of the fun things that we've come up with. Let's see, I've just got them. This is one of our, this is one of our banners that goes with an activity, and it talks about how there really is space for everyone, how it takes so many of us to bring these big astronomy discoveries. When we think of the people who do astronomy, certainly astronomers, sometimes people think of astronauts, but it takes a whole wide community of people in order to bring these new discoveries about the universe to you, to the public, right? So Ryan and I are part of that. Renee obviously is part of that as well, and we're some of those communicators. So in this, the people with the orange backgrounds are some of the science communicators that we work with. But there are also technicians and people who run the observatory. Even like you saw, the man who drives the telescopes around. What a wonderful job! But it takes an awful lot of people. From the people who cook the meals at the observatories, they're like big campuses, like college campuses almost, that take a lot of people to run it. So without everybody participating, we wouldn't be able to bring you these things. So I wanted to show you that. We've also, part of the suite of activities that we've put together are talking about legends in the night sky and the constellations that we this got a little bit big, so I don't know if you can see this. We talk about constellations and the legends that we tell around the world and how important they are to people all over the world for lots and lots of different reasons. And then there are activities like create your own constellation. So this is one that you can easily do at home. I'll stick the link in the chat and we'll put it on the YouTube page as well. But just want to let you know these are easy to do at home. You might not want to, for example, print that whole banner, but there are activities that go with it that are easy to do. So there's all that, and that's just part of this bigger dome, the big astronomy NSF grant that we've been working on, and Renee is part of it and does amazing live videos like this one.
Thank you, Vivian. And thank you, Ryan, for talking about creating the show. Um, I think that our guests would probably enjoy hearing how the two of you got to work in the positions that you're working in now. Because, I doubt many people, when they're young, think, you know what I want to do? Be a planetarium director. Maybe there are some people who are born thinking that, but from most of the other planetarium directors I know, it's not their first path. So, Ryan, can you share a little bit about your path, about how you got to be the science communicator that you are today?
Sure. It did actually start in a planetarium. As a 9-year-old, went to the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, and I was blown away. And I was also terrified because there was the giant machine in the middle of the room that rose up. It was that era of planetariums, and I also learned that the sun wasn't going to live forever, so it was existentially terrifying as well. But nonetheless, I emerged from that really just fascinated by astronomy. And although I wove through different things that I thought I might want to do as a youth, I ended up going to school in astronomy. And actually, I do have something that not all of these images are important, but there is something that is worth showing it as an image. So I do want to just share my screen one more time because I did actually go all the way into graduate school to study astronomy, and I worked with early Hubble Space Telescope data. And the specific object that we were looking at with the Hubble Space Telescope was a dwarf irregular galaxy. When I show you this image, it doesn't really look like a galaxy. This is a dwarf galaxy, tiny galaxy, smaller even than the small Magellanic Cloud that's in orbit around our Milky Way galaxy. And so it doesn't even look like anything very impressive. What we wanted to do was study the star formation history, so the history of how stars formed in this region. Now, this is actually a Hubble Space Telescope image, but it was taken long after I was in graduate school. Because when I was in graduate school, the Hubble Space Telescope, when it was launched, had what was called a spherical aberration. And so this is the image I really wanted to show. On the left, you see starlight spread out over a large region of this digital image. And this is an image taken by Hubble. And then only after it received a hardware upgrade, after I was out of grad school, I should know, with what was called CoStar, were they able to kind of refocus that light into a small point. And because what I was trying to do was measure the different colors of stars in this diffuse little galaxy, it was basically impossible for me to do that with the data that we had. So I actually blame Hubble Space Telescope for making me leave research astronomy. I was doing my research at Rice University, which is in Houston, Texas, and I kind of ran across the street to moonlight and then eventually work at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, which is still a large and impressive science museum in the country. And eventually, and my job was at the Burke-Baker Planetarium. So I kind of made this leap that was, in one sense, just right across the street, but in another sense, into a whole new world of doing, instead of research astronomy, doing astronomy education. And I think what was great for me was that was a chance to not only use some of my science skills, so I was manipulating data to figure out how to put it into programs, but I was also doing type design to create images and slides for brochures and for planetarium shows. I was writing shows. I was able to use all of these other things that I love doing in a way to teach the subject that I love so much. So it was a great opportunity for me, and I'm just glad that, if I were, I don't know, a chemist, it's not like there are chemicalariums or anything. There's not like there are places like planetariums for chemistry. And so I feel fortunate that I happen to be in a scientific discipline that has these amazing places. And so now I never imagined being a planetarium director when I was really gaining my interest in astronomy. But turns out it's a great fit.
Thank you, Ryan.
I love that
Vivian,
story.
how about you? How did you find your way to Astronomical Society of the Pacific?
Um, Pretty much like every job I've gotten, I started by volunteering. So I was just up the street at San Francisco State and studying physics. And I didn't even know I really liked astronomy, but the ASP had a program called Project Astro, where they brought physics and astronomy students and amateur astronomers and professional astronomers into classrooms. And you got partnered with a teacher. And I found that I just loved talking with kids about astronomy. I thought like, oh, I could do this forever. And then I ended up, before I graduated, they were looking for someone part-time to run the program. And I ended up running the program. And because I have been an amateur astronomer for most of my life, I got into the amateur astronomy side of what we do at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. And I love my first memory, I think, of astronomy as not that young of a kid, but it was Halley's Comet when it came around. And thinking about, I've talked so many times with my son about he's going to, with any luck, be around to see the next loop of it. I don't know if I'll still be here, but I think that, this idea of the predictability of the universe, and it seemed like such a great way to explain things. So it's really, there are so many things you can do studying astronomy. People I went to school with are doing amazing things in computer technology and all sorts. It prepares you for so much. Yeah.
I also like
Okay,
to think
so
of astronomy as like the gateway science. It's the
Totally.
science that kind of leads into so many different. I mean, if you want to understand a lot of things in astronomy, you need to understand chemistry, you need to understand physics, increasingly biology. As we
mhm.
think about what life might look like on other planets or what it means to find a sign of life, and so these intersections with other sciences, I think, are super inspiring.
So can you guys, can you both tell us a little bit? Now, let's answer this maybe pre shutdown days. What would a typical day at your job look like?
You want to
You
go
want to go
first?
ahead?
You good?
All right. A typical day. Well, I work at a computer, in front of a computer a lot more than I thought I was going to. But I get to talk to people from all over the world. I talk with astronomers in Chile. I talk with nuns in India. I talk with people who are anyone who is interested in learning about astronomy. So it could be Girl Scouts. It is a really social job for as much time as I spend in front of the computer. In fact, the shutdown didn't affect me much at all. I'm still in front of the computer talking to people most of the time, which is great.
Well, certainly one of the things I missed during shutdown is the way our day would typically start is in the planetarium dome. So we have a team that produces these shows, obviously, with Big Astronomy. And we would get into work around 9 o'clock, and it was before the shows would start during the day. And so that was our chance to review content in the dome. And it's a really amazing and collaborative experience. I barely touched on that when I showed you some of the images, but um, there's a group of about 8 or 9 people, depending on how you divide it up, or in the case of Big Astronomy, actually a larger team of about a dozen, who were really involved every day, looking at content, discussing it. And it's an amazing experience to sort of be able to critically but supportively discuss how to make something better. I mean, it's a wonderful experience to be able to just think about, wow, that's really great, but if we did this, we can make it even better. And so that's a fantastic experience and part of the day to day that I deeply miss, although we do it over Zoom now. It's not quite the same. And then a lot of meetings. I have a lot of meetings, but some of the more fun parts of the day are talking through ideas, working out solutions to problems, um, figuring out things that we can do for our audiences that are not just the planetarium shows, but activities on the floor. And then every so often, I would actually get to deliver a show in the planetarium, and that's also a great pleasure. So about once a month. Back in the olden days, I would do a show in the planetarium, a program that would talk about recent discoveries in astronomy. That was always a highlight as well.
And I love that we get to work together sometimes, Ryan. We invite each other over for testing out new materials or ideas that we have. It's a really collaborative community. The astronomy community is fairly small, even worldwide, and especially the astronomy education community. And everyone is so incredibly supportive of each other. It's a lovely place to be.
And so great to be in San Francisco, where we have the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, which, in spite of its name, which sounds very regional, is actually this hugely influential group of people who do amazing educational work, and just fantastic to have you right down the road. So yeah, we'll
Yeah,
find
we've had
more ways to work together.
exactly.
Have an audience question, which was actually very timely because it ties right into a question I was thinking of asking. So, what do you like? What do you love most about your job, and why?
Oh, good
Ryan, I
question.
think Vivian went first last time, so you should go
Okay,
first.
yeah, I'll go first. So I'm going to go back to the collaboration. I think that, you know, and this is actually one thing that is quite different from my education, because at least when I went through college, doing a science education program, it's like it was a lot about the individual and about what, doing the problem set and kind of like going off and being able to pass that test with the amazing whatever. And what I think, first of all, has changed in science, or what you learn when you get into science as a profession now, is that it's highly collaborative. You've got to work with people. And I have to admit that initially for me, that was a little uncomfortable. I kind of wanted to do everything myself. I kind of wanted to be, in some sense, it's like the hero who like puts everything together. But in fact, when you get a chance to work with really talented people, and you saw the result of that if you saw Big Astronomy, amazing people with great skills coming together to tell the story of amazing people with great skills in Chile. And so that for me has become the most fulfilling part of my job, is being able to collaborate with people and make things that can be seen by audiences, and that we're always pushing each other to do even better.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's an amazing part of our job. I love that I think your job is probably quite the same, Ryan, where we get new projects every so often, every year or every 6 months, and we get to learn a whole new set of materials, whether it's like a deep dive into the magnetic fields of the sun, or in this case, like what exactly all these telescopes are doing and who's running in them and how they work. And getting to do that investigation, you kind of have to really understand a subject quite well before you can get to that little piece at the top of the iceberg that you want to share with the rest of the world, right? So I can't create an activity if I don't really understand the science behind it. So it's been a really fun, it's a great way for me to learn more about astronomy all the time, because I get to take on these projects that become really, really part of my education continuing, which I love.
Yeah, and it's kind of this, you can't teach something until you really understand it. And I think what's cool is that when you not only have to dive deep and focus, but then you need to pull back and say, well, okay, how does this fit into the larger whole? What is going to have meaning for whomever I'm communicating this to? How is a kid or a visitor to the academy, how is someone going to make sense of this, or why is it going to be relevant to them? And so it's great because you kind of have to do that refocusing all the time, and it's a wonderful mental challenge.
It is.
So much of the time, yeah.
Well, we are just about out of time. So I want to thank Ryan and Vivian for speaking with us tonight, sharing a little bit of their story. There was someone who in the Sherry mentioned that she loved to work in science communication and is feeling so inspired. So I'm so glad that you were able to tune in, Sherry. And I hope that you do find your path to working in science communication or some other STEM career someday. I'd like to mention that Big Astronomy is a National Science Foundation funded research project. So our research team could use your help if you're interested in contributing to the research of the show. There is a survey that we've just linked to in the comments. If you complete the survey, you'll be entered into a drawing for a $10 Amazon gift card. And there's a focus group that you can participate in, and everyone who is a part of the focus group will get a $5 Amazon gift card. And we've just put that link in the comments as well. So if you're interested in contributing to the research associated with this project, just hop on over either to that survey link or join that Zoom focus group. But thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. I hope you continue to enjoy the Bay Area Science Festival. And thank you to the Science Festival organizers for allowing Big Astronomy to be part of your project. And thank you, Ryan and Vivian, for being here tonight. So I hope that we get to see all of you soon. Follow Big Astronomy on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter if you want to learn more about the project and see some ongoing educational events that we have coming up. We have 2 more next week. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks.